Okay, welcome to the Keystone Carnivore Podcast, episode number 4. And today, my guest is Megan Wiebel. She has been following a ketogenic strategy and approach since January of this year. And I invited her on the podcast to share some of her experiences today. So, Megan, welcome to the podcast. And I know we have a lot of great things to discuss about keto, the ketogenic approach, and I'm glad to have you on today.
Thanks for having me, Corey.
Okay, awesome. So tell us a little bit about your, you had a challenge in January of this year. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so myself and a few friends at work decided to take part in this healthy wage challenge that Highmark Health sponsors. And I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to lose weight at first, but this program, it runs from January and it's actually still going on. It ends April 10th. And basically you have to lose 6% of your body weight. So I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. And 2 weeks in, I decided to start keto.
Okay. And with the ketogenic approach, you said you reached out to a relative for that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my aunt has been doing keto for 1.5 to 2 years now, and she had a lot less weight to lose than I do. She only had about 35 pounds that she wanted to lose. And but she had really good success with it, and I thought, okay, maybe this might work for me as well. And as most people do when they start a new diet, I poked around on the internet and thought, okay, maybe this worked for these people, maybe it'll work for me too. I'll give it a shot. So God bless Aunt Kim. She came right over with a folder full of recipes for me, and we basically had a big cooking time that day, and that's how it all started.
Okay, awesome. And as far as weight loss so far since January, how many pounds to date have you lost?
Yeah, so I've lost 30 pounds so far, and my total goal is 90.
90. Okay. And reaching that 90 by what time?
So I didn't set a date for myself,
Okay.
but progress has been good so far, so we'll see.
Okay. Awesome. And this is really exciting stuff to talk about. On this podcast, we have people that have been doing this type of approach for years, totally new to it. So I think you're going to notice a lot of great things down the road, and for years to come, following a strategy like this. We were talking a little bit about some other benefits that you've noticed on your approach, as far as cognitive ability and thinking ability throughout the day. You mentioned increased energy. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I just felt tired all the time, and it wasn't necessarily something that doctors could diagnose as a certain issue or a particular thing that caused it. I was diagnosed with PCOS, so people with PCOS can have chronic fatigue. And since I've been eating keto, I just seem to have more energy. I'm not drowsy during the day or unfocused. So it's definitely been helpful in that respect.
Okay. Um, and you also mentioned with decreased anxiety too.
Yeah, so I have anxiety and I've been on medication for it. And I almost feel like I may be able to go off my medication at some point. I feel more relaxed. I'm not anxious all the time. So there's been a big change in my mood as well.
Awesome. So no crash like mid-afternoon at all.
Nope.
Okay. And how about like previous strategies that you tried before, like a typical day? Would you experience that at all?
So strategies I tried before, it didn't help with the fatigue aspect of things, but I can tell you I was hungry like all the time. And on this, I'm never hungry. I've also been kind of doing intermittent fasting as well. And so sometimes I just forget to break my fast. It's like, oh, it's time to eat.
Okay. Yeah, and that's actually one of the things we didn't discuss a little bit
Yeah.
earlier. But tell me a little bit about your intermittent fasting approach, because I've seen a ton of people have a lot of benefits from that.
Yeah. Yeah. So typically what I do is I'll have black coffee in the morning, just to kind of get me going. But my first real meal is really lunch. And then I'll eat another meal at dinner. And of course, healthy following keto, I'll have, protein and some veggies, and fat. And then I'm kind of done after dinner. So basically fasting from after dinner until lunchtime the next day. So basically following the 16-8 approach. But like I said, sometimes I push it a little bit, see how far I can fast.
Okay. So black coffee, anything else added in there at all with your fast?
So no, typically I won't.
Okay.
I'll just drink the black coffee to get me going, to wake me up a little bit.
Okay. And that always helps a little bit too. How about like your energy and focus with the intermittent fasting? Has that been improved as well?
Yeah, it definitely has. I didn't start doing the intermittent fasting immediately when I started keto. So once I did start it, I did see a difference definitely in my focus and my fatigue. It I I'm amazed at the benefits that it has provided.
Excellent. Excellent stuff. And what does a typical like meal look like for you? Do you have a lot of variety or consistency?
I'm fairly consistent. I'm a creature of habit, although I'm sure you have seen on Instagram and Facebook, I like to try new recipes too. I really like to cook. So learning how to cook with almond flour and coconut flour and some of these sugar replacements was different for me, but fun. So like lunch, breakfast. I really like to have like eggs and some avocado. And I love steak. So my husband and I have steak a lot for dinner, and his favorite veggie is broccoli. So we'll have broccoli a lot. But we are kind of creatures of habit, and we do have a lot of the same meals throughout the week. But we do try new things every now and then. So it's fun to try new stuff.
Okay. Excellent. Have you had like any carbohydrate refeeds at all? Experimented with that at all?
So I have not experimented with that at all. I basically, when we eat out or whenever we eat, I really do try to stick to keto. And if I slip up, I get right back on track the next day.
Okay. And as far as exercise, do you do anything for exercise too?
Yeah. So I danced for 13 years and I still love dance. I kind of think once you're a dancer, you're kind of always a dancer. So dance is probably my favorite form of exercise because I don't feel like I'm exercising. Um, so anything that kind of is related to dance, like I like Zumba and all that kind of stuff because I'm a dancer at heart. So I'm not really a treadmill person, although I've done it. I really, really like to lift weights. So every now and then I'll get some weight training in, but I'm definitely not a pro at weights.
Okay. Excellent. And that's always a good strategy to have strength training and to build lean muscle as well. And I hope my mic is not acting up here. Should be okay.
I can hear you, so.
Okay, excellent. And then you mentioned some of your main sources that you use are beef, cheese, avocados, almonds. Anything else that you like to throw in there?
I also make sure I use like a lot of healthy oils, like olive oil, real butter. So that's how we get our fat in.
A lot of the animal based.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We do use like coconut oil sometimes too. So
Okay. Is there any foods, as far as like the hydrogenated oils, um, that you stay away from at all?
so like any type of like veggie oil or like soybean oil, I definitely stay away from those. Corn oil, I stay away from that stuff.
Okay. Um, and I posted a thing a few weeks ago. I don't know if you've seen how Procter and Gamble leveraged back in the early 1900s, their Crisco and processed seed oils in favor of that, and um, kind of putting butter, cholesterol, as the bad guy, which it really isn't. So we'll talk a little bit about that here, because I know you mentioned something a little earlier about that you'd like to let everybody know about. Now, we really didn't discuss this too much, but as far as like lab values in regards to cholesterol, LDL, is that anything that you've checked yet?
So I haven't checked that yet, but I will say my cholesterol has always been good, even when I wasn't following keto. So maybe it's even better now. But it wasn't necessarily something that I was concerned about. But I will be getting lab results shortly because we have to get a wellness check every year for our health insurance. So I can compare my values from previous years and see if anything has changed or improved.
Okay. And a lot of the research that's been coming out now shows that, that's not having as much of an adverse effects on health, as long as you're getting the good sources in, like it sounds like you are, and people that do follow, a lower carb approach.
Yeah, I was definitely scared at first. I will say my number one thing was I was scared of fats. I told you this in the pre-interview. I thought I was dying every day. I thought my cholesterol was going to go up. I thought that this was it for me. I was getting heart disease. I can't be eating this way. But the more I learned about good fats, the more I realized this is the way our bodies want us to feed it. So, and fat is a better fuel than the carbs. So
Okay. Now, you said you reached out to your aunt for some initial help. Were there any other resources like books or anything online that you looked up at all?
not specifically. So it was kind of let's Google search this and see if this is a viable option for me. And yeah, I think I put a lot of trust and I relied a lot upon my aunt that had a lot of knowledge of it.
Really good. And with regards to your aunt, what benefits did she notice too?
So I know that she um, she had a lot of pain, things like that, that I know that I think this has helped her with. She said she just feels better overall. And so that's definitely a positive. She's not too much older than me, but she's in her 40s. So I think she didn't want me to get to that point where I was having pain and, kind of killing my body with the fuel that I chose to give it. So that's kind of what convinced me to try this diet, was she said how much better she felt and more energy and less pain. And I thought I'd give it a shot too.
That's great stuff, and it's great to hear, that no matter what age you are, you can definitely take upon this approach or some sort of low carb approach. And it sounds like both you and your aunt have experienced more of like a like your body heals itself and repairs itself a little bit more efficiently. And you mentioned, once you start this approach and you give it a few weeks, you kind of notice that, hey, these are the types of foods that your body needs, and it may not need a tremendous amount of carbohydrates throughout the day to function.
Yeah, exactly. It almost seemed like, hey, this is what my body has been trying to tell me it wanted all along, but I didn't know that. So.
and I think, most of us coming to an approach similar to this definitely feel the same way too. One of the other things that we talked and we discussed a little bit earlier was a documentary on Netflix. And can you tell us the name about that and what you noticed about that documentary?
Sure. So I told you when I first started keto, I was terrified of fat. And I basically thought I was dying every day. And I was texting my aunt every day saying, is this diet going to kill me? Is it going to raise my cholesterol, give me heart disease? And that's the end of Megan. He said, she kept telling me different things and sending me different links and stuff to try to calm my fears. But the one thing that she said to me was to watch this documentary on Netflix called The Magic Pill. And so I finally sat down and watched it, and it kind of made me understand why this diet is so good for our bodies and how it just heals your body. It starts with an Aboriginal community, I think in either New Zealand or Australia. And they're discussing their ancestors and how long they lived and what caused their deaths. And they ask them, what caused their death hundreds of years ago. And they say, well, they just died of old age. And what caused the majority of their deaths, now or 10 years ago. And it's these diseases caused by diet, basically diabetes and heart disease. So it starts with that. And then it kind of transitions over also to a family that has a child with autism, and how it's really helped her daily functions. So that was also kind of neat to see, just like food really does heal, and it is really important. And kind of instead of, prescribing medications to help these issues we're having, it's kind of just helping the symptom instead of treating the root cause that we can do with diet.
I'm really glad that you brought up that point, because I went to a seminar a few weeks ago related to keto and carnivore, and the presenter explained it. Probably like the main source of all the, like a lot of the root cause of all these problems is hyperinsulinemia, too many processed carbs too often, relating to pretty much the standard American diet that we've all been brought up on as kids. And his analogy was, there's a running sink, a running faucet in the background, and there's two people with mops mopping up the floor from the overflowing sink, but they're not turning off the faucet.
Yeah.
So that's a really good analogy, and it sounds similar to the one that you mentioned in that documentary.
Yeah, definitely. I don't even think that people realize that that's what's happening, that these diseases are caused by the way we're eating, because we think that this is the way we're supposed to eat, and this is what we were told our entire lives, fat's bad. So it's definitely a change, but it's the right change, and the science is there to back it up.
That's excellent stuff. And I'm really glad that you brought up those points today. As far as someone looking to change their way, some of their nutrition habits, they're seeing keto, they may see your example on Facebook or Instagram or social media. What would be your advice for someone considering this approach?
My number one advice is don't be scared of fat, and you just have to jump in and do it, because you will see the results. like I said, I was terrified. I was eating too much fat. I was told my whole life that these foods weren't good for me. And it just read the science behind it. I think that will reassure you that you're doing the right thing and what makes most sense for your body. And watch The Magic Pill, because you'll see the science in that and it really helps explain it. So don't be scared of fat.
Okay. Excellent. And Megan, if anyone was looking to reach out to you on social media, how would they be able to find you and ask questions if they had any questions?
Yeah, so the best way is probably Facebook. I'm Megan Wiebel on Facebook, so you can find me that way. And absolutely, I'd be happy to answer questions. I'm no expert, but I can tell you things about my journey and maybe encourage you to start keto or help you with your approach.
Okay. Anything else that you'd like to add for today?
I think we covered it. Thanks, Corey.
Okay. Well, Megan, I'll be sharing this here in a little while. So be on the lookout for it. And hopefully I'll be able to have you back on the podcast sometime, and we'll talk about some more interesting things, and maybe a few months down the road, your improvements and other benefits that you notice on your ketogenic approach.
Absolutely. I'd love to. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Corey.